Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast. Episode 1, I decided that I would choose the topic, Keepin' It Real, to discuss today. Nobody is joining me. It's just me, ranting, talking, discussing, sharing my thoughts on keeping it real in the hunting industry. And I hope it all makes sense. Sometimes when I get going, I lose my train of thought and forget what I'm talking about. Not necessarily forget what I'm talking about, but forget where I'm going. And I have to wrangle it all back in. But anyway, thanks everybody for listening. Make sure you go to iTunes and subscribe. Make sure you share the podcast with your uncle's friend Ted, who is a wild man, your Aunt Bonnie, and your Uncle Rico, and your Grandma Beverly. She's a hunter as well. Make sure you share it with all your friends. Make sure you leave us a comment. Make sure you go on Instagram and subscribe. That's not a thing. You can go to Instagram and follow along. And see, that's what happens. I just lose my train of thought. Anyway, coming up next, episode 1, Keeping It Real. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast. I am Brett, your illustrious host, and this will be the real episode 1. It was not the introduction episode. This is the real episode 1. You know, forgive me. I hope the introduction sounded okay. It had been a long time since I consistently recorded podcasts. I bought a new computer since then. I have a really nice microphone. And then it just kind of sat in my basement collecting dust. And so to get everything set back up and locked in to where I feel like it's optimal, took a little bit of time. And I realized there was some stuff I didn't do today once I turned everything on. But anyway, we are back. And this episode will be called, it's all about keeping it real. And, I think that from a hunter's perspective, it's about being honest with all of your successes and failures in the field. Not necessarily just in your personal life. I'm specifically talking about, not just showing your big bucks that you lay the hammer down on every year. It's about, articulating your failures in the field and how you can be a better hunter and, learning from that and so on and so forth. So I think we all want to show the kill. We all want to show the big doe that we nailed exactly, you 10 ringed from 30 yards or the 150-inch big buck, not here in Michigan, but, there's a couple. Anyway, the big 150-inch buck that you shot 10 ring from out of state from 40 yards, and nobody really ever wants to talk about the fact that they shoot over that big buck's back, or they blow a hole through that big nanny doe's stomach and find her laying in a swamp after trailing her for an hour and a half, only to see she's alive, and then have to go back the next day and follow the crows to figure out where she's at. Yeah, that happened. So everybody lives on this, I want to only show my successes, when the reality is we all have the failures. And if we only show the good and we never show the bad, we're doing a disservice to the future generations. And I think this pertains to me because I've only been doing this filming thing for a couple of years now. And I think getting into it initially, I probably only stumbled across those videos that showed the successes and these guys, these famous hunters who have tens of thousands of subscribers and thousands and thousands of views, maybe even tens or hundreds of thousands of views on their YouTube page, which is sort of the target that I wanted to shoot for, is maybe have that sort of success one day. Maybe I only found those people in the beginning, and maybe I only saw those successes and only successes. You don't really see, at least I can't remember, the Drurys showing them missing any big bucks. For that matter, they probably don't get paid to show their failures. They're only getting paid to show their successes, and perhaps that's part of the problem as well. But I think I probably only found the positives initially, and therefore I thought that what I needed to do when I edited a video was not show all the bad stuff, the does that you shoot through in the stomach, the little 8-point that you shoulder shot, that types of things. You don't include those in the videos because that's not what people want to see. But I've come to learn in the last 2 years that that's not how I really truly feel. And for example, this year I didn't do it because I lost the video, and it's ridiculous. But as I was compiling my clips to put into my October archery recap, I somehow mislabeled the doe that I missed on opening weekend Sunday night at like 10 yards. I think I hit a tree branch, but ultimately I missed that doe, and I didn't get to include it in my recap. I didn't do that on purpose. That was a total accident. But this year I took a long bomb, like 85 yards, at the only buck I had in my line of sight the whole week that I was there. I watched that buck walk the property line at about 150, 200 yards and like creep into this point on a massive oak tree and probably hit a scrape. It just wasn't super visible yet, but it was like 85 yards. And I don't know why I took that shot, but I thought to myself, this is the only buck I've seen. I'm leaving tomorrow. Just take and I was not even close. I'm like, my pins are set at 20, 30, 40. And 40 is a stretch for me. I don't want to shoot 40 yards. I can, but I don't want to. But I took that shot and I missed so short of that deer. Thankfully, I didn't wound it. But I included that in my Kansas video this year. And I think it's important to be honest. I know that was stupid. But I did it anyway. And I think a lot of people have those situations where you get a nice buck and it's probably slightly out of the range of which you feel comfortable. And you are battling internally, like, do I take this shot? Ethically, strategically, that's probably a no, but ethically, do I even risk it? And I was feeling really good about myself as an archer, and I thought if I can just do the mental math of how my pins are spaced on my existing site, and then just add it visually to it, which is saying it out loud sounds ridiculous. I feel confident in my bow. I feel confident in my arrow setup that I can do this. And it was stupid. I shouldn't have done it, but I did it anyway. But I included it because I need people to see that and realize that we all do similar things in the field. Prior to my self-filming, we had a buck on camera here in Michigan that we called McMurray because he was an absolute goofball. And he was always in front of my camera. He'd come in front of the camera and he'd have not trash, but like vines and leaves and sticks hanging out of his antlers. And he was just always in front of the camera. And he was this really great looking buck. And I had him come in opening weekend again, maybe the second night. And I misread the distance and I shot underneath him, but I clipped like his belly fat. And so he bled for a while and we tracked him and he left for like 3 weeks, came back. And then on November 1st, he came barreling across the road, the back of the property. And from the same tree stand that I shot my big buck in this year, he came in behind me and he was probably, I thought 35 yards. And I aimed a little high because it was questionable. And it turned out he was probably at like 45 yards. But I hit a great shot and he mule kicked and hauled ass east away from me, and the weather started to change. And so I jumped down like 5 minutes after I shot that buck. I jumped down and made a bunch of racket and went over to check for blood because I knew the wind was picking up and the snow was about to start, and I didn't want to lose blood because it was the biggest buck I'd ever seen. I didn't realize at the time that it was McMurray, but I didn't have the ability to record this. Long story long, I think it was a great shot. I think I bumped him, and he ended up running a loop and then came back across the property and across the street, and we bumped him again later, and he ended up dying in the neighbor's property. I think showing that those mistakes, those mental mistakes in the woods is important for people, not just like, hey, I shot this buck and I found he only ran 20 yards and here he is, he's a monster, and you long arm him for the camera. Like, that's great, but when you don't just talk about those. Talk about the failures as well, because we all have them. And if you hunt long enough, you're going to have them more than once. Hopefully not every year. Hopefully you're able to learn from your mistakes or what it was that you did wrong. Or maybe you didn't do anything wrong. Maybe you just hit a branch, but learn from them. I guess that could be considered doing something wrong. You didn't trim those branches good enough when you were doing your stand prep. But anyway, share the successes and share the failures. This year my brother Adam really struggled, in my opinion, and I don't know if he would say the same thing. We'll have him on to discuss it, but I think he really struggled with the fact that his first season ever, 2 seasons ago, he tagged out on nice bucks. Opening or the second weekend, he shot the biggest buck we had on the property, and then later in December he shot probably a 2-year-old 7-point, and I think he was under the impression that it would always be like that. And so then this year, I think he found that it wasn't as easy to get on mature bucks, and not even mature bucks, just anything older than a 2-year-old. He couldn't find himself. And so then when he did, he was taking risks. And he, in my opinion, and I would say this to his face, I think he was making poor decisions in the field and taking risks and taking shots that he otherwise shouldn't take. And I think he knows that today. And again, we'll discuss this with him. And I think he wouldn't do that in the future. But, we have those on film, or at least we have some of them on film. And so we'll share those this year when I put together his November hunting recap available on our YouTube channel. And there's somebody that I want to give huge props to that does a really good job of sharing their highs and their lows, and that is the Rise Hunt on YouTube. They're a couple of Michigan guys who are really great at documenting all of their footage. Their videography is second to none, man. Those guys are great. They really have no problem, and I think they not only do not have a problem, they are happy to talk about the mistakes that they make, the rushing of certain things, the bad shots, the mistakes, and the successes in the village. I specifically reached out to those guys and said, listen, I really appreciate the fact that you share the mistakes that were made, the honest, true video footage from your hunts, instead of just the end result of, I shot this deer, here it is, look how beautiful it is. Again, the Rise Hunt, they're doing a great job. They have a wonderful YouTube channel with some really great footage of lots of different things you can go see. They really put the hammer down this year on some big bucks, and it was really nice to see, how they progress as hunters and how they learn and grow as hunters and how they are successful, but also struggle along the way. They don't just throw a stand and, drop a monster on their first sit. Like, they work for it. They have mistakes that they make and they learn from them, and then they capitalize later. And I think it's really great. I think they're doing a really great job of showing that for everybody, but also, why are we doing this? Why do humans feel like we only need to show the good stuff? And I personally believe it's social media. I think social media is 100% to blame for humans wanting to only show the good, and pretend like there's never anything bad that goes on in the woods. And I really believe, I believe I said it before, we're doing ourselves a disservice. I believe we're doing the industry a disservice. I believe we're doing future generations a disservice. My children, your brother's children, like anybody that you know that hunts and has seen you have success in the field may want to emulate what you're doing. And if you don't share with them the trials and tribulations, they are going to be led down a path of certain dissatisfaction. There's undoubtedly they will fail at some point at something, and if they don't know how to regain their footing and move forward and learn and grow, they're going to quit. And I don't think that's what we're trying to do. I think we're trying to teach, at least I know that I am, I think we're trying to teach the next generation of hunters how to be confident in all scenarios that they could encounter in the woods. And social media, although fun to a certain extent, and certainly something that I use daily and that I'm using for this particular venture that I'm on, has its pluses, but it certainly has its negatives. And I think it's the sole reason that people feel I should only share with you my success stories. And until we start sharing those failures as well, as a hunting community, I think it's only going to get progressively worse. But at least I can say for certain that, mark my word, as of this very podcast broadcasting, and truthfully from last year forward, I'll be certain to share with everybody my failures as well, because they are aplenty. I am certainly not perfect. I'm certainly lucky, but I'd rather be lucky than dead. So I don't think that's the saying. I don't think kids are saying that these days. I don't think kids are saying, man, I'd rather be lucky than dead. But that's definitely how I feel. I would rather be lucky than dead. I think it's also important that we as a community, the hunting community, it feels huge. Excuse me, like this, the hunting industry and the hunting community feels enormous. But the fact is, I think the hunting community is relatively small. So I think, in my opinion, it is important to reach out and communicate with those other content creators or brands that you're consuming, or that you're watching or reading or listening to, and make sure you let them know, whether it's in a message or whether it's in a video or whether it's in a feedback on iTunes or whatever, exactly what it is that you appreciate about what it is that they're doing. I really made it a point to reach out to the Rise Hunt YouTube guys and let them know that I personally appreciate what it is that they're putting out and the honest, truthful videos that they're putting out for content that shows those failures and how much I think that's important. And I am going to toot my own horn here and just say that that's what everybody should do. If you don't like it's so easy for everybody to just reach out and talk about what it is that they don't like. Everybody's quick to jump on their keyboard and just hate on somebody or drop a quick 2-sentence negative feedback. And when it comes to something positive, people just want to click that like button and move on. And I think it's really important for somebody who's new, like myself, or any of these other podcasts or content creators, take a few extra minutes and do your best to articulate what it is that you like, whether it's in a comment or in a private message or in a comment on their YouTube page, or like I said, feedback on iTunes if it's a podcast. Take a little bit extra time and tell that creator, that person who's investing time, that their life into doing this, passion for them, explain to them what it is that you appreciate, and just instead of just hitting that little heart, Take a little bit, take just 2 minutes, man, and just, or woman, person, take a, take a little bit more time and just tell them why you liked it, what they did that was great. And honestly, if you don't have anything good to say, shut the fuck up and move along. Don't be those people that provide all that unnecessary hate and vitriol on the internet. There's enough a-holes out there. You don't need to be one of them. Instead, take that energy and don't just click the little heart and like. Take a couple extra minutes and tell somebody exactly what it is that they did great. And let's celebrate it. Let's be positive. Is that the universal blood donor? Or is that O? I can't remember. Anyway, I think the most important part of this whole thing is that we're all going to do it. We're all going to have successes. We're all going to have failures. We are all going to have opportunities or mistakes or mishaps when we are doing certain things that we love, because we're human and we're flawed and we make mistakes and we get excited. And sometimes there are things that are outside of our control. There are, mechanical failures. There's equipment failures. There's just things that happen that you are completely outside of your control. You could have the biggest buck of your life at 20 yards and a car drive by and honk its horn, or some douchebag yell out of his window, some obscenity, who knows? And that deer could take a step right as you release your arrow, and you could hit just a little bit back, and you could end up not recovering that deer. Things happen within and outside of our control, but there's no reason to shy away from discussing those things or celebrating those learning opportunities, because you should always be learning. There's always something you could be learning and growing and becoming a better steward of the woods. And I personally struggled for a couple of years in the woods and wondered if I'd ever find myself in front of a good buck ever again. And this year turned around for me. And it was a matter of working really hard, and it was a matter of learning about my mistakes. And I think the number one thing I learned was that as soon as I went mobile, I was too mobile. I was all over the place all the time, and I don't think that did me any. I think that I did myself a disservice. I took mobile to the extreme, and anyway, I learned that I need to give a spot a couple of sits. And just embracing your humanity, the fact that you will make mistakes, embracing that you're human. You're not some incredible archer who never makes mistakes, or shooter of guns. Is that the thing? You're not going to hit dead nuts every time. You will make mistakes, and that's okay. We still love you. I think that's really all I wanted to discuss about keeping it real. I'm not sure how many of these I'll have where it's just me ranting or talking. Or if I'll ever bring people in and share their perspective on whatever the topic might be. But I think this is a really great topic for episode 1, keeping it real. And why don't you keep it real? Go reach out to your favorite content creator today and let them know what it is that you appreciate about them so much, and why you continue to follow along on their adventures. Anyway, we'll talk to you next time. Thanks. Bye.